Hi everyone and welcome to National Carers Week. I am currently sitting here today with, again, very famous person on our social media lately is my dad Phil, and we're just going to be having a bit of a chat today about National Carers Week. And as he was the primary caregiver in our household for a good 15 maybe years, we're going to have a chat about that. Hey Dad.
Hi Jess.
How you doing?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing fine. So our first question is, can you share with us a bit about your role as a carer and how it's changed over the years?
Righto. Well, that's a very big answer to a not a very big question, but initially my introduction to being a carer was obviously after your accident. You girls were in hospital. The clinical nurse consultant at the hospital talked to me about what we're going to do about carers when we got home, and I told her to, in no uncertain terms, that I'll look after my own kids. I don't need carers to come in and help me. I'll do what needs to be done. I was very naive. I could have done what needed to be done, but probably not for long. So we've had a long history with carers over the years, as well as being a carer myself. And the important thing to do about being a carer yourself is not to overextend yourself. Make sure you get breaks, and that's where other carers came in, and having the two of you to look after and care for is a big ask, and certainly needed help to do that, particularly in the early days when you were both, if I can say, much more dependent on carers than what you are now. How it's changed, I guess I had a really big role in personal care for years, which certainly don't have that now because neither of you live at home. But and when you do come home to visit, we try to organise that carers. A carer can come and do that because, understandably, for personal reasons, you don't really want your dad doing that sort of stuff. You need somebody that's a bit removed from the situation. So even though I did do it for years and years and years, and I wouldn't say I happily did it was not it's not that I was happy to do it, even though I was. That's my role. I fully accepted that that's what I did. That's what I had to do. So how's it changed? Well, you guys became more independent. As you became more independent, able to do more things for yourselves. My role was to step back. Probably didn't do that so well, as probably should have given you more leeway and more encouragement to be more independent earlier than what I did, I guess. May have made independence when you left home easier if we had done that. But having said that, I wasn't the only carer in your life, so it's we had some wonderful carers. You girls, well, I say we, you girls had some wonderful carers. You know that, but some of them were very good at letting you do stuff for yourself, and some of them were very good at doing it for you, creating independence. Probably not only creating independence, but teaching you both how the world works, being there, allowing you to find out how the world works, how the world works when you have a disability, and you know what it's like travelling. We travelled a lot. We travelled to Sydney many times a year for clinic and checkups and that sort of thing. And as we know, catheterisation was difficult because we had to stop and do that. We had to do toileting stops on the way to Sydney. Well, there's nowhere clean enough to do it. everywhere was bloody, just not clean enough for that. So we ended up doing that in the back of the van on the side of the road or in a car park, because that was cleaner than our other options. Those sorts of things challenged us, or challenged me as a carer. I guess everything was achievable. It's just some things were more difficult than others.
And I guess thinking about those road stops, particularly on the way to Sydney, there was, like you said, they're VC stops from Wagga to Sydney. And, they're maintained as well as can be expected. But like you said, they weren't hygienic enough for what we wanted. And I think that also comes into also not having the right equipment there as well, as we grew and stuff as well,
You need to have the equipment that promotes your independence, and you just, it's too much to expect that every spot you stop at has that. But there were very few places, maybe no places, that provided the equipment that is required for you guys to be independent. So we didn't have a lot of holidays. Probably that's one of my regrets, is we should have had more holidays than what we did. But holidays weren't easy. Holidays were difficult, in as much as probably one of the biggest ones we had was when we went to Bendigo,
Sovereign Hill,
and we were away for I think 4 or 5 days then, and we went into Melbourne, and as a primary carer, and having to do the toileting, the showering, all the personal care, as well as drive the van, organise meals, all that sort of thing. That was pretty. It was a good holiday. I enjoyed it. I'll never forget it. But it was also very tiring and very difficult. And in reality, is it probably wasn't the safest thing to do on my own. However, that's what we did. That's what we had to do. So it was difficult for us to have holidays or bigger holidays and that, because we couldn't always expect one of your carers to go with us. And I certainly wasn't keen, and I know you girls weren't keen, to have someone that you didn't know at the other end doing your care. So yeah, look, there's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of responsibility, a lot of pressure when you're a parent and a carer as well. And I had said to me that look after yourself. You need to look. You're the primary carer. Look after yourself. What's going to happen if you fall over? But I didn't, luckily. But I don't know what would have happened if I did. But it's just a matter of you do what you have to do, and you manage the best you can in the safest way you can. However you can.
Yeah, and that's a really good point as well. Is there were times where, when we'd eventually moved into town off the farm and stuff as well, you'd begun working at one of the high schools and got tripped over by one of the kids and smashed both your wrists. And, that was, we were fortunate enough there that we had become fairly independent by that stage, but the sister still needed a hand with sort of personal care and stuff like that, in a sense. So we had those solid carers that we could rely on to get that done. So it's that sticks out in my mind as one where it could have gone super pear-shaped, but we were fortunate there, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring that up, Jess, because I'd forgotten about that, but I'd not really considered that. But that's a really good point.
Because you weren't just without one hand, you were without both your hands, obviously.
That's true.
So.
And I only didn't break both wrists, but badly injured one, and hurt the other one. But I guess we were lucky that we had built that core group of carers that we had, which wasn't large, but it was a very solid group of carers that we had to make sure that things kept ticking over the way that they needed to.
Your position as a carer is quite unique. In a sense, you were looking after both your kids, Ash and I, with spinal cord injuries. You can experience both sides of the coin. What are some of the most rewarding aspects of being a carer? And what would you say you've learned as a carer and watching us as we've grown up?
Well, I can't separate the two, Jess. It's because I was a parent and a carer. Probably the most rewarding thing is that I spent that much time with you and Ash, which otherwise wouldn't have happened. Just too much time for you girls, probably. But yeah, we were, one didn't operate without the other. We were three, you know. And that's the way it worked. That's the way it had to work. But the most rewarding things I saw as a carer was your achievements, your growth and your sister's growth in what you were able to do and what you discovered you could do. And I could see you girls getting not just physically stronger, but emotionally stronger and able to cope with and view the world as you had to view it. So that's probably the most rewarding things. Seeing you develop, seeing you both develop, not fighting against your disability or your injuries. I wouldn't say you embraced it, but you took on board that that's the way that it was, and this is the path we're going. And these are the things that we have to take with us. So
now, when we were first injured, you owned your own business, and you continued to run that business for a couple of years before you decided to sell and study. So you're at TAFE a couple of days a week from memory. What support did you have caring wise whilst you were juggling both work and study?
We had a good support system set up with the carers that they had the hours that they were available, and they worked, and I moved my work and adjusted my lifestyle around what your care hours were, what your requirements were as far as needing care. So I would just juggle it, so make sure that everything fitted around. Because you guys came first, whatever was needed with you guys was first cab off the rank. But be able to manage around that while still getting your care done. Juggling being a carer and running a business, it sort of worked, but it didn't. I could run it reasonably well from home, but the profit had gone out of it because I had to employ someone to do my job, what I used to do, and that took all the profit out of the business. So that experiment finished after a couple of years, and then I went back farming. 2 or 3 years of drought meant that wasn't really very profitable either. However, it was suitable. It suited me because it allowed me to be around when you guys needed me to be around. But anyway, so juggling the two is probably difficult, especially as a parent or a family member and a carer, because if you're just I don't mean just a carer, but if you're employed as a carer, then you start when you start, you finish when you finish, or mostly. But I considered that I was a carer 24 hours a day, so I didn't clock on or clock off, so to speak.
You got to upskill yourself, obviously, and that's, that allowed you to, I guess, as a parent who is also a primary caregiver, you were able to find yourself, I don't want to say a niche, but you were able to find yourself something that you were able to do as we got older, we're off at school, you know?
Yeah, I did. I did. Without any thought of what I was going to do in the future, I just decided that I was going to do something. So I enrolled myself at TAFE, and I went and did a Cert 4 in Community Services and a Cert 4 in Disabilities. And then we ended up moving to Wagga, and that came in real handy because it helped give me a job in the education system as a teacher's aide, especially working with kids with intellectual and physical disabilities.
So you work in the inclusive education sector as a
Yes.
as a teacher's aide.
Yeah. So I had no real idea about what I planned to do in the future. All I knew that I planned to do in the future was to be a carer until you guys left home. I'm probably jumping ahead here, but assuming that if not the next question, one of your questions is going to be, what was life like when I stopped being a carer?
We don't have that because I don't think people truly believe that they ever stop being a carer.
Well,
if they're a primary caregiver, in my personal opinion.
Well, exactly right. You don't, and I never consider that I have, but faced probably in hindsight, looking back, faced probably some of the toughest challenges were when you and Ash left home and moved away, and then I was no longer the carer anymore. I didn't cope with that very well. And I'm probably only, how many years have you been gone from home, Jess?
9, 8.
Right, what about Ash?
5.
Right, well, I'm just
4.
I'm just probably just starting to come around now. Well, not really, but it's been difficult. It's been hard when you have been the primary carer or the number one carer, and then even though we'd eased off that and weaned off that, and I had other carers to help me, at the end of the day, you weren't here. So my carer role changed significantly. I became casual carer, part-time carer, a rare carer, only when you came home if necessary, and then we try to organise that you have other people do your care as well, because I think it's important that from my perspective, my opinion, that I had to be dad, and the two got blurred a great deal. The roles, dad role and the carer role, they were one. In reality, they were one, but the two roles got the lines got blurred a lot, and you've got to try and be dad, or you've got to try and be mum, and not be a carer at some point. Our situation was vastly different from most others because there was only one parent. So I guess in another family situation, one parent would step back and the other one would step in, and then they'd get a break. Whereas if they ever get a break, and they probably don't, but yeah, I mean, it is what it is. It was a challenge. Probably still is a challenge. Not really, but it's different. It grows. Being a carer, like your disabilities, for want of another word, it grows, it changes, and carers change. Carers change because of the circumstances, not just of the people that they care for, but the circumstances that occur in their own lives.
happen to remember, I have a very vivid memory of me getting dropped off at Sydney Uni after you guys had spent the weekend with me, helping me settle in to my new digs in Broadway. And I have a vivid memory of going, all right, Dad, I'll see you the weekend after next. And then I turned to look at my phone, and then I looked back, and you were still standing at the aquatic centre at the doors like this, looking back in. And I still remember that.
Sounds right.
Just at the glass doors there at the front of the Sydney Aquatic Centre. Because I think I had, I think I was there for some training or something like that. So some basketball thing.
Yeah, I mean, I guess even in a non-personal role where carers aren't related to their the people that they work for, there's separations quite often difficult. I know from our own point of view that the carers, 99% of the carers we have, and we didn't have a lot of carers over the space of 15 years, but we had a few. But I tried to make sure that we didn't have a revolving door where carers concerned, and that was for your benefit and Ash's benefit, to make sure that you had some stability in the people that worked around you, and that worked out well. And we had some very, very good carers that were there for a long time. And they became family. They're like they're part of their, and they still are, but they were part of the family. So they lived in the house with us.
They were there from basically 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. overnight most days.
Well, yeah, initially in the early days they were, but that sort of tapered off a little bit as time went on. But yeah, they were there for they were there for a large period of time, and they were part of our family, whether we wanted them to be or not. Which we did. We were happy for them to be part of the family, even though the companies that employ them and the powers that be would say that's not right. You can't. They need to separate the two, but you can't separate the two.
The caring agencies.
Yeah, and I understand their point of view too, but it just doesn't work that way. It's not black and white.
What do you think could be improved for carers so they feel better supported?
Probably just make sure that they have a go-to person that they can talk to. And I'm trying to think as a solely as a carer, not as a family member. Excuse me, but yeah, they need support from their hierarchy, from the people that they work with. They need to be involved on some level in the care of the patient, the client. Yeah, the care of the client. They need to be, quite often, because they're at the coalface, like they probably need to be, their opinions need to be considered and offered and asked for.
You think there needs some type of supervision to debrief, or?
No. Look, yes and no. I think carers, and talking to other people who do care work, I think carers are underrated. I think carers are grossly underpaid, and they're probably under-supported in a lot of ways. And now that NDIS is around, carers are probably, the level of care's gone up. Has the quality of care gone up? I don't know. I know there's probably a lot of training and online training and that goes on and that sort of thing, but there's some people out there with really significant care needs. We need to make sure we protect those people. And by doing that, we need to supply them with very good, qualified carers. And the only way to do that is they're going to seriously need to, if it's not financially appealing for them, then they probably won't do it.
What advice would you give to people who are new to being a carer?
Oh, wow. Open your eyes, look at the big picture. You got to look at the whole environment. It's not just about what their physical needs are, what their personal needs are. Now, that's a large part of it. You need to look at the environment they live in. You also need to look at the needs of the people around them. And they need to take into account that they're human beings with real feelings. And take teenagers, for example, teenage kids. They're still teenage kids. They still have emotional issues. They still have hormonal issues. They still have, as kids are growing up, like all kids do, just because the person has a disability or requires care doesn't mean that they're not still a normal, shouldn't use that word, but a
fully functioning human being.
Yeah,
I can't even say that.
With feelings and considerations and yeah. So basically, go in with your eyes open. Embrace the unexpected. Okay, so look at the big picture and just take one day at a time. You've got to be adaptable and you've got to be flexible. Number one, you've really got to be flexible. Flexibility is very important. The people you're working with should be flexible, and in most cases will be flexible, but you've got to work with them. They've also got to work with you, and that's a bit difficult when you're a carer because I think that's not always the case. But you've got to. It's not just a simple solution of turning up and going to work. You need to embrace the situation and talk to the family, talk to the client, talk to the care agency, talk to everybody. But you've got to talk to their friends if that opportunity arises. But you've got to get to know the person, get to know the background before you can actually effectively provide them with what they need.
Is there any sort of study you would sort of encourage anyone to do before they went into caring?
No, look, nothing specific. There's lots of things out there, lots of training and stuff out there you can do, but your best training is hands-on training. Seriously, if you get the chance, do some volunteer work. Do some volunteer work at an aged care facility or something like that. You need to learn to be patient. Patience that's a biggie. You've got to be patient. You've got to learn to be patient because sometimes things take a long time to get done. But learn to be patient. Learn to listen. Learn to observe and learn to record. You got to record what you do. You got to record things that you think might be out of the ordinary. May never be used, may never be seen, but you need to record it just in case it is.
I guess that's pretty true when it comes to, particularly if you're the head carer and you're the primary carer and you're there day after day, and you have different carers coming in on days. If you've got skin breakdowns and stuff that you've got to monitor, even stuff along the lines of food eaten, that type of thing, you need to be sort of aware in that sense, because obviously skin health is such a big part of spinal cord injury, and making sure your skin is healthy and all that. So that's where the recording part comes in, I guess.
Absolutely. And communication's the key. Communication with everybody. Communicate with your client. Like, at the end of the day, number one, that's who you're there for. And I'm sure there's situations where you may not be able to communicate with your client, but just communicate with them anyway. Keep them in the loop, keep them informed, keep them up to speed, and treat everybody with the dignity and the honesty and the communication that they deserve to have in their life, that they would have normally. Normally, I didn't say that. I hate using that word too, but we're all normal.
Look them in the eyes when you're talking to them, stuff like that.
Absolutely. Someone in a wheelchair, and take this from someone who's got 2 girls in a wheelchair and doesn't do it as often as he should, but get down to eye level. Kneel down's just getting a bit hard with my knees.
I didn't want to say anything.
Kneel down, crouch down, sit down. Get down to the level you need to be down to communicate. And that may just be a physical thing, and you mightn't think it's that important, but yeah, it definitely is.
Final question. Now, there are people out there who have never cared or have never had to care for someone, let alone without full financial support. What would you like to share with these people so that they have a better understanding of the role of a carer?
It'll be the most rewarding and the most heartbreaking thing you're ever going to have to do all in the one instant. You become, in my experience, caring for you guys was caring for me as well, because I lived your disabilities as much as I could without actually having them. It was to this day, it's the best thing I've ever done in my life. If I have to hang my hat on one thing that I've done, that's it. If I had to pick the one thing that I've done that I could hang my hat on and say, this is what I'm proud of, this is what I've done, that's it. And that's the way you need to look at it. You need to look at that. This is not just important for me, it's important was important for you and Ash as well. So first and foremost, what I got out of it, or what any parent would get out of it, was the rewards that you deserve to get out of it, that you would expect from any parent would have any interaction with their children, caring for their children. The only difference is our situation was much, much more intense, much, much more in your face, and much, much more full on. But having said that, it was much, much more rewarding too.